Right, many of the skills we show you in these clips, they will be purely examples of how to. We will give you the basics. We would like you to develop your skills in applying them to the full rod that you are building. You know the effect you want, you can achieve that. We will give you the basic skills that you need to get started. Right, looking at shrink tube at the next stage, we've seen a long length of about 4 foot or 1.5 meters, and now we've just cut a short length which I'm going to put on this piece of butt section, which is actually a carp rod. Notice that I'm just leaving a short piece over the end of the blank. Alright, I will show you why I do that. It's a personal choice, it depends on the type of rod I'm building. Having slipped on your piece of shrink tube of the desired length, what you now need is a heat gun. This is an industrial heat jet with a very small nozzle. I do not recommend you use this because the heat generated will actually melt the resins in the carbon blank or the fiberglass blank if you hold it on the blank in one point too long. Most people will use a hairdryer on high temperature. It takes a little longer but will work. Some people use heat guns. It's faster, but you have to be very aware of the tremendous heat generated by a hot air gun and work very quickly and do not hold the heat source in one point for too long. So here we go, switching on. I'm just feeling on my hand the heat that's being generated. I do not want it too hot. Yeah, that's about the right temperature. So starting where you want the shrink tube to sit, just apply the heat up and down very gently. And when you reach shrink point, you'll see the shrink tube pulling back. If you're restoring an old rod and you've cleaned an old foam or cork grip off to put on shrink tube, then remember this shrink tube will shrink back to the surface below it. And if you've got chips and marks on it where you've been cleaning, or any left residue of the old glues, then these will show up like craters or pieces of stone under the shrink tube. Now I'm getting near the end of the blank. Now sometimes you can cut off. What I quite like to do is just turn the shrink tube inside the base of the blank, like that, internal. Just direct the heat in there and it will pull it in nice and tight. Switch off the heat gun. I'm standing this out the way so we don't burn anything. And there you are, you have a very neat end to your shrink tube. You can now insert a butt button in there and glue it in place, and you've finished your butt or grip. Here we've put in a trigger reel seat and we just want to form a quick back grip. I've taken a 4-inch slim carp grip and cut the cone end off and then put that onto a bed of masking tape so it's nice and tight in place. This would be resined in place so it won't move. Likewise the short buttons here on the back. And just if you're very careful, you can slide your shrink tube over and then gradually work it up the cone so it butts up tightly to the reel seat. a little bit of resin or glue under that end just to make certain that holds in place. We've got our heat gun, switch it on, check the temperature again, just make certain it's not too hot, about right. You're starting just behind the reel seat. Get that initial piece anchored in place. Just going to check that it's still slid up tight against the reel seat. The resins will cure and hold it in place. And now work back, continually rotating the rod. Do not work from the cut end, because that will cause the shrink to take place in the wrong way round, and will pull this joint open. Keep it rotating, keep the heat moving away from that blanket. Best. Now I'm down to the final butt dome. I want it to keep down there. I just want to take a little bit of the shrink tube down behind that. When it's hot, it tears very easily. Right, let's let this cool down for 10 minutes, because when you're working with very hot shrink tube, it has a tendency to tear, and we don't want it to tear. So now I just want it to shrink back into the butt button that we've got there. That's it. That's all we need for now. And again, I'm going to put this down to cool for an hour or so, and we'll come back to it in a little while. We've had a little time for the shrink tube on this butt grip to cool down. It's nice and firm, so we take a sharp blade and we just gently cut off the excess. We'll make certain it's nice and neat. And then with our rubber button, we would glue this into place. I'm not gluing it, I'm just using a push fit because I know it's quite tight. Push it in really tight, stand it on the floor, and there we have the butt button and your shrink wrap nice and tidy. If you wanted to use a stainless steel button, you could do. Here we've just used a black plastic one. All we now need is just a little tiny foam dimple on the front. Slide it down, get our foam dimple, slide it up to the reel seat. It's a little large. Take some masking tape. Use your 2-part epoxy glue and then slide this on, firm it in place, it's all nice and secure. And then just to finish off, we use a rubber winding check. Slide it down. And there we are, the finished grip.